because I wasn't really political, never. And politics isn't still my thing. I am one of those guys who enjoy the work side of it. I love the work because if you do good work, that means you're helping people.
Welcome to the In the Arena podcast. My name is Jared Miguez, a co-host on this podcast that brings you the inspiring stories of our clients who are leaders and innovators across different industries in Southeast Louisiana. They are visionary entrepreneurs, savvy real estate professionals, media creators, military business owners, and community champions. And we are going to showcase the remarkable achievements and share their personal stories. Tune in for insightful conversations, valuable lessons, and motivational stories that are going to reveal their secrets to success and offer you insights to help you on your own path. Welcome to In the Arena podcast. So welcome to the In the Arena podcast. We got Mr. John Schroder, former state treasurer, real estate man in a lot of different hats in a lot of different ways, husband, father. I think that I think your biggest success story in your life is that you married Miss Allie because she's a pretty incredible lady.
Well, I think anybody that's been married 40 years would say that. We hit our 40th this coming May.
That's amazing.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Miss Allie's great.
I got my 10-year this year.
Well,
Yeah. A few more years ago.
well, I tell people like y'all, so just say yes, sir.
Yeah.
That's how long we've been at it. When the candles cost more than the cake, you know you've been at it.
That's funny. And so on this episode of the military segment of our podcast, I always have Dom Luke, my good buddy, who mentors me, personal coach to me, but also was a pararescueman in the Air Force for 5 years. 5 years.
7.
7 years. Close enough.
Really
Round it up, round it down. But the point of this episode, or these episodes, is for you and other former military guys to talk about how your military career shaped you as a business person. Or maybe it didn't, but I have a good feeling that it's going to have an impact on what you've done since then, because you've been in the public world where you've represented our state in several different ways, and also you've been a big supporter and advocate and promoter, and you made a big impact in St. Tammany Parish as a whole from when this area really started to grow. So I'm really excited to have this conversation with you today. But let's first start with let's talk about your military career a little bit. Mm-hmm. So you were in the Army. And you spent 8 years doing that. So tell us about your military career a little bit.
Yeah, so that sort of happened at a time, like I said, I just made 64 this past weekend, but I was in college when Ronald Reagan was the president. And I was graduating in May of 84, and I had a degree in criminal justice. I played football for a little while at Southeastern. That's where Ellie and I met. And I moved from Metairie to the North Shore in 1979, and aside from my military and my law enforcement career, I've been over here the majority of my entire adulthood. Yeah. I've been over here, but we came over and went to school, played ball for a little while. Didn't do very well in school. That's a story maybe for another day, but. I was coming up on graduation. I had a degree in criminal justice, and we were in a little bit of a recession. The federal government wasn't hiring at all. Mm-hmm. And the only job interview I could get was with the U.S. Marshal Service. And I could go to work for a sheriff's office. And that's just not what I wanted to do. I really wanted to be a federal agent. Yeah. And so long story short, my next door neighbor was an FBI agent, and I learned about the CID in the Army, which is the Criminal Investigation Division. So I actually made a trip to Birmingham. I did this all within 30 days. I went to Birmingham because Fort McClellan, Alabama, is outside of Birmingham, or not far. Mm. And that's where they did a lot of law enforcement training, federal level. And so I went and paid it a visit with these FBI agents out of Birmingham, and I decided that's what I wanted to do. Yeah. 21, heck, I thought I wanted to do when I was at 41, much less at 21, sure. But anyway, with total blind faith, I walked into a recruiter's office in Hammond, Louisiana. I'm graduating in 3 weeks, and I walk in there, and I told him I wanted to sign up. Talk about naive. Yeah. I walk in and tell this recruiter, he says, well, what are you doing, blah, 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 because I didn't tell him I had graduated. I was fixing to graduate from college. I was sort of quizzing him, what's it take, blah, blah, blah. And then, so then I eventually told him, I said, I'm graduating in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And I'd like to join the Army, and I want to be a CID agent. He said, you can't do that. You got to have this. And I said, well, that's what I told him. I'm fixing to graduate, because he was looking at me, hey, dummy, what you doing? Walk in my office. You want to be a CID agent? Yeah. So then I told him, I said, well, I'm fixing to graduate in criminal justice in like 3 weeks, goofball.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And so anyway, he changed his whole tune. And then he asked me, why don't you want to go to officer candidate school and be an officer? I said, I don't want to be an officer. I want to chase bad guys. I want to catch bad guys. And there's a difference, okay? So anyway, long story short, I take the test and everything's cool. He says, you can do anything you want. The problem is you cannot enlist in the Army to be a CID agent. You have to be in the Army for 2 years. You have to be in for 2 years, and you have to have a 4-year degree. Well, how many people did that in 1984?
Yeah.
So it was, you talk about blind faith. So then he says, okay. And he says, well, what else do you want to do? And I said, what can I get in to get ranked the fastest? He said, infantry. Sign me
I
up.
feel like that's a common suggestion
Yeah.
by these guys.
Well, they do, because
They love guys that just walk right in and they're like, cha-ching.
Yeah, exactly.
Meeting my quota.
They always looking for infantry guys, especially back then.
Hell yeah.
And we weren't at war. I mean, there's some skirmishes. Grenada was going on, and the Central America, Nicaragua, that place was turmoil, and because I deployed down there. But so anyway, I signed up. I signed up for the infantry, and I came out of college weighing about 192, and I'm 6'2". I wear that pretty. If I weighed 192 right now, you would know what I look like.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so I signed up in the infantry, and I'm at Fort Benning, Georgia, like 6 weeks later.
Yeah.
6 weeks later, and the difference between the infantry basic training and everything else in the Army, I was there for 16 weeks because I was infantry. That was my MOS, and so I didn't leave. So you with that drill for 16 weeks, not 8. And it was brutal. I came out like 165. I looked like an Ethiopian. I could run 2 miles in right around 11 minutes.
Wow.
I mean, I was so fit, it wasn't even funny.
Yeah.
But anyway, I came out. I was a Spec 4 right out of basic training, and I showed up. This is a funny story. I showed up at my first order. My only orders, or the only place I ever served was at Fort Campbell, 101st Airborne Division. So I show up at Fort Campbell, Kentucky in October. It's not like October in Louisiana. I show up at Fort Campbell, Kentucky in October, and there's snow on the ground.
Yeah.
I'm like, what is that white stuff? So I get assigned to a headquarters company and in a barracks. I'm only 21 years old, but when you're 21 in the Army, you're like the old guy.
Yeah.
Because when I was in basic training, I was one of the platoon guys. I mean, everybody there was 18. I mean, if you were 21, they looked at you, what are you doing here? I mean, don't you have something better to be doing? You graduated from college. Are you stupid or something? What are you doing here? But, I was focused. I knew what I wanted to do, but it was only one. It's a time the only path I had to get there. So I get to Fort Campbell. I'm assigned to a headquarters company, and I'm in the barracks. And my very first night in the barracks, about 2 a.m. in the morning, you hear all this commotion in the hallway. Well, it was the MPs coming through with their drug dogs. It was that time.
Yeah.
And so what they did, you had to get out your room and you had to go stand at attention outside your doors. And so remember now, my degree's in criminal justice. So I spent 5 years in college, so I've done some walkthroughs and been around the drug dogs, and sort of through the degree, you sort of see some of these things.
Yeah.
So where I stood, I could see into the room, and my roommate, he was a little short African-American guy from Chicago. And so we're standing there, and I'm looking half down the into the room in the doorway, and that drug dog walks in, and he takes a right because these rooms aren't real big, probably smaller than this room, and then he takes a left, goes to the desk that's on this wall, and looks like a ball in a pinball machine. He's going freaking nuts. MP tells the dog to heel or whatever, and he sits there. And they pull a drawer out of the desk, and there's a bag of marijuana in it. Now, here I am. I haven't even met my commander. I don't know what I'm doing, except that, hey, man, I want to be a CID agent. And you're not getting to be a CID agent if you got marijuana in your own, okay? So long story, the next morning, they sent us all to get out urinalysis. And, of course, he came back hot, and I didn't. So I'm sitting in the commander's office. Said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "What do you mean, sir?" He says, "No, I'm looking at your whatever. I don't remember what they call it anymore." He says, "You got this, this, and this. What are you doing in my company?"
Yeah.
I said, "Well," and I tell him a story, why I'm here and what my goals are. So he assigns me to a military intelligence, the S2.
Cool.
And so I went over there, and I had a very, very successful career in the military.
So it was just 2 years you were doing that, right? Did
Yeah. So you had to do 2 years before you moved on. That's very good. Yeah. So they put me in a military intelligence section, which is the S2. I filled a E7, E8 spot as a Spec 4. And so they promoted me. The earliest you could be promoted was like 6 months in. And I remember, I still have the pictures where the lieutenant colonel swore me in and said, "You're the fastest guy I ever seen become an E5.
Yeah.
Now remember, you can't be an officer because they don't have officers, they have warrants, warrant officers, but they don't have commissioned officers in the CID. So I did all kind of stuff. We deployed down to Central America. That was an experience. I was down in Honduras, and I swore that I would, if I ever had the opportunity, and like I said, I was 21, maybe 22 at the time, that I'd go back and help and do something in that country. That was really the first, not the first time, because I did a few things when I was in high school, but I've always been real sentimental to those kind of things.
Yeah.
So I eventually went back on a pilgrimage to Guatemala for like 10 days. I got stranded there. That's another story. I got a lot of stories. But anyway, so they put me in a military intelligence section. I stayed there for about a year, and there was some way where they could lend you to a unit, and I forget what they call it again. So they sent me to the CID unit, and I wound up working for almost a year on their drug suppression team, doing dope bars and going out. I had a blast. It was a lot of fun, to be honest with you. It's easy to buy dope from guys in the military, to be honest with you. They're all the way from home. They said, they're all young, 18 to 20, a lot of them. I did that for a year. Then I went to CID school, came back, became a narcotics agent, did a lot of fun things, but it's a different world then than it is today because, when you tell somebody you're a federal agent, they stop.
Yeah.
Federal agent, or you knock on a door and you kick down a door and say federal agents, they ain't going nowhere. Yeah. Unlike what happens today. So you talk about a culture and a generational, whatever you want to call it, it is a different game today than it was when I was in it.
Yeah.
But so I did that for a little while, and one day I wake up. I was very athletic. I said I played football in college. I played on all these softball teams, and I played in a tournament, a long weekend tournament. I woke up the next day, and my vision wasn't right. And I go to the doctor, and this was like in 1988 now. Fast forward a bunch of years. Well, my retina was hemorrhaging. It was bleeding. And luckily for me, I had to have emergency surgery at Vanderbilt University, which was an hour away. Yeah. And I'll never forget, I sat there and a doctor, my parents were living in Nashville. It's sort of unbelievable how all that happened. My dad was a Chrysler dealer. When Chrysler almost went bankrupt in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s, Lee Iacocca came and saved him. They closed his corporate store in New Orleans, and he and my mother moved to Nashville. Wow. Well, Fort Campbell was an hour from there. So it just happened. And so anyway, I went to Vanderbilt and had that surgery. I'll never forget. It was like yesterday. The doctor said you got about 1% chance of keeping the vision in that eye. Wow. Well, you can look in my eyes. I can see. Yeah. Now, I have a nice, significant blind spot in it. But basically, it changed my right eye. Yeah. but basically it changed my whole career. And let me tell you something. Now, I know you pretty well. If tomorrow you woke up and your life was over, in that everything you do and the way you do it is over, you're not going to do it anymore.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? I didn't get off the couch for a little while.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I mean, I was pretty devastated. I had one of the highest security clearances you get in the country. I was one of the top rated agents, not only in my office, but in the organization. I told some kids last week that I spoke to, older, I say kids, they were 17 to 20 something. I said, by the grace of God, one of the best things that ever happened to me is I never got in trouble coming up. I never did anything really illegal, and I never got in trouble, never fooled with drugs, always honest with people. And that paid dividends later on when I got into this kind of work. But, I tell everybody, though, God's got a plan for you. I honestly believe that if I stayed in that line of work, I wouldn't be married today to Miss Ellie.
There you go.
I might have kids, but it's a lifestyle and a career that doesn't mix well with having a wife and children.
Yeah. So the fact that your life changed, though, I think there's two common things just from what I know about you, and we've known each other for 10 years now, right? Whenever you were a state rep in Baton Rouge, we met as I was in college. I was a page, and we made friends there. And then fast forward, we do some work together now, and we live in the same neighborhood, so we see each other often. But ever since I've known you, there's been a servant's heart, and there's a integrity has always been two values that we've never talked about it, but I know that those two things are important to you, and also being very, very disciplined with how you spend your time and your money and your resources and all that stuff. But so
to a fault, by the way.
Yeah, but some people can say your success you've had now has been because you've been patient over so many years. But as a person, obviously you had the discipline to go and play college football, which not a lot of people do, and then you had the discipline to join the military, know exactly what you wanted to do and pursue that. And then even after you had this setback, you go and you become the state rep, the treasurer of the state of Louisiana, and all these different things. It all has common values, right? And Dom says this every time he talks about with his buddies after they finish being a PJ, they have their credo.
These things we do that others may live.
And they live by that even today, even though they're not doing it.
I didn't hear what you said.
These things we do that others may live. That's the motto of the pararescue community, right? And so...
So I mean, from a young age, whenever those values, like, did you identify those things, or it was just kind of a gut thing following your gut on what you were going to do next? It seemed like it's very intentional.
Look, I told y'all this before we started. Sometimes you have to believe when you get to be my age, you sort of realize what you do well, what you don't do well, and you can't lie to yourself anymore. You can talk your way through things when you're younger, and you can convince yourself of things. But when you get older, and as I said, my candles cost more than a cake now. So I have more past than I have future, unless God lets me live another 63 years. I don't know that. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think I'm going to be 120. But I can tell you, the discipline came from my parents, but that discipline, it's not something I learned in a book, and I talk a lot about my education. My education didn't come from my college books. And I told the kids that this week or late last week in a seminar that I put on. My education really started in my home, in a big family. But my father was a professional athlete. He was a entrepreneur, and discipline was unbelievable. I mean, and we did for others. He taught us early, before we went and played baseball on the weekend, and everybody wanted me on that baseball team, and everybody wanted me on that flag football team. I was a good athlete. But we did for others before we did for ourselves. And he taught me that. And Jared, you know me pretty well. There's nothing that I don't do today that I don't think about that first. What are we going to do for others? And I've taught my kids that, who are your age, and I teach young business people and old business people. Don't sit around thinking about your problems, man. Just go help others. You focus on others, and it was a discipline that I created. Everything that I do, everything, to a fault, like I said. But, that discipline really brought me into my political world, because I wasn't really political, never. And politics isn't still my thing. I am one of those guys who enjoy the work side of it. I love the work, because if you do good work, that means you're helping people.
Yeah.
Okay. And I've just had careers that help people. I didn't have jobs that, were on a computer, nobody saw anything. You're like the wizard behind the screen. Everything I did was touching people, helping people. So that just fostered that. And man, my whole adulthood, it's all been about that. Luckily for me.
So then what would you say your craft is? Not your career, not your job or your title, but your craft.
Helping people.
But I mean,
and when you say a craft, am I a carpenter, or am I this or that? No.
Well, I think there's, we show up and we have these jobs and we have titles and we have roles and responsibilities, but we also have like a craft and a passion that we're trying to bring forth, right? And so,
well, you use words I'm not familiar with. I don't have a craft. I have passions in my life that I fulfilled through my businesses. My wife and I've had so many businesses I can't even count them, and not hundreds, but I mean, we've been through just about every retail business you can think of, from grocery to sports bars to laundromats to tanning salons. We've had building companies, development companies, real estate companies. So the great thing about being me is I can do something different tomorrow. And I don't even really know you. I don't know about your business, but I can sit down with you in 15 minutes. I'm going to help you with your business. Yeah. Because I'm going to teach you things that you're not going to read about in a book. And I'm going to teach you things that you only live through, or you only learn through living. The only difference between me and you is time. But I have you on wisdom. And I tell my kids that all the time. You may be smarter than Dad, but you'll never be wiser than Dad. So one of the things I did and still do to this day, unfortunately, for me, like I said, I have more past and future. Now people come sit down talking to me, where I used to go sit down and talk to people. I wanted to go learn. I was like a sponge. I mean, if you told me you had some successes, I wanted to know about it, and I'd sit down, and my dad taught me that. So, when people ask me what I do for a living, I just help people. I'm just a little minnow in a big lake. Yeah. And I really said I'm a little minnow in a big ass lake, but I'm a problem solver. And there's not too many things and too many businesses that I can't sit down, look at, and analyze and say, here's a different way to do it. I didn't say fix it. And I say that all the time to people. I'm not here to fix your business, but I can help you improve it if you want to improve your business. Because a dollar is a dollar. I treat a penny like a dollar. And it all adds and subtracts the same way. So people ask me a lot, man, as state treasurer, how did that go? And wasn't that intimidating? No, not really. On any given year, my name was on $30 to $50 billion. And I don't say that in a cocky, braggadocious way, but when you're disciplined and you don't spend money cheaply or foolishly, it's easy. Yeah. It's easy to look at situations and say, no, we shouldn't be doing that. You see what Musk is doing? I'd love to be doing that because that's easy. And it's like throwing a dart in a Lake Pontchartrain when you talk about government waste, y'all. I mean, it's wasteful. And the Republicans are every bit as bad as the Democrats. I don't want to get off in another path, but I would tell anybody who wants to be successful in business, you better start young and learn discipline. Mm-hmm. You have to understand what no means. But you have to discipline yourself.
So let me ask you a question on that. So at what point, you sat down with a lot of people, you said growing up, going through the years to go get advice from people. At what point do you feel that you transitioned from the guy who was asking the questions to the guy who's giving the advice? Because, again, you've said it, you've had a lot of businesses over your career. Yeah. And I think that since I've known you, again, a lot of times when you think about somebody who's in politics, they go into politics and then that's their identity for the rest of their
Right.
political career. And some people will spend their life being a business person and then become a politician after they're done. And some people get into politics at a young age. But at what point did you say all of that accumulated experience from high school, from college football to the military to your law enforcement career afterward, and all your political servants and your businesses, did you say, okay, I feel like I know enough, I've seen enough that I can make these types of comments? And
That's a good question. In my late 40s, when I ran for the state house, you know, and again, luckily by the grace of God and my parents, I put other people before myself, like my kids. I was not going to I was being pushed to get on the police jury. We had a police jury back then, on the parish council and this, that, and the other. And I just said, you know, I'm going to wait till my kids grow up, you know. So I waited till my son was going into his senior year to run for the state representative seat for this region, you know, and it was half of West St. Tammany and almost half a geographically Tangipahoa Parish. It was an unbelievably big district. And, you know, we had some success in business. But what really drove me to do that is, Jared, I had done just about, and I sent you my resume this morning just so you could take a look, because I'm looking at a position right now. I'm not going to say where, but they asked me to send them a resume, but I really didn't have one. I hadn't done one in a long time, you know. So it took me like 10 days. And I sat there, but it was a great exercise, because you know what I did for the first time?
Made you think back?
Made me think back and remember everything that I had done. And not only did I do it, but I really need to do a resume just on my real estate career, just on my construction background, just on my military background, just in my nonprofit world. It's a 2-page resume. And I say that because Ellie and I have done a lot of stuff in our 4, she's 63, I'm 64 years of life, you know, but it's all been centered around helping people. So you ask me what my craft is, you know, that's a good question. And I don't know if I have an answer from the standpoint, like, I'm professionally trained in law enforcement. I'm professionally trained in real estate. I'm professionally trained in the construction business, and I'm professionally trained in the retail business. And I think I'm professionally trained in the nonprofit, because there's not too many things I haven't done. Not too many boards I sit on. Today, I'm the president of the Association of United States Army chapter in Louisiana. We had the 250th anniversary of the ball coming up in June that I'm going to oversee. So, I mean, I feel like I got 5 daggone careers, you know, but all of it wraps around one common thread. They all tend to help people.
Yeah. I like the answer personally, because there's, for 2 reasons. One, a lot of people go to law school and people want to know, like what did you learn in law school? They think that you go and you like have this encyclopedia of statutes that you can like regurgitate and that you're an expert in every area of the law. But the reality is, what law school does is it teaches you how to think. It teaches you how to solve problems differently than anybody else that hasn't gone to law school is going to know how to solve a problem. Yeah. And so, you know, for me, I feel like if somebody would ask me what my craft is, I think that would be part of my craft, is being able to creatively solve problems. I focus mostly on real estate now. But then the second thing is, people always ask, you know, what's your main value or your main focus? For me, every time I think about what my purpose is, it's always to provide for people. And that may be providing monetarily or the resources, but it also might provide opportunities for people from a business standpoint or employment standpoint, and maybe just providing encouragement or support. Right. And so I find myself trying to be a provider for all people, being an oldest son of 4 boys and the oldest grandkid on both sides of the family. I'm always trying to help my family be better. So I like the answer, even though it's not a specific craft. If you are intentional, you know yourself enough, and you're disciplined not to chase a bunch of squirrels, because if you have that broad of a craft and you're not disciplined, you could find yourself doing a lot of stuff and not really making an impact.
No, because look, I tell people all the time, because look, I spend a lot of time talking to people about their businesses and this, that, and the other. And I said, look, you can't be something to everything, because then you become good at nothing. You know, you have to focus in somewhere. And we did. We ran businesses, but we ran multiple businesses. But the key to having any successful business is discipline. And when
What? Not to interrupt you.
Yeah.
When you, I hear you. Discipline. What does that look like for you?
yeah, well,
Like, explain your discipline process. Or
yeah, well,
to give insight, because everybody has a different process
yeah,
for that.
everybody has a different definition of discipline.
Does that mean you're up
But
at
I'm
4
talking
o'clock
about
going on your
business.
walk and you're drinking your
Yeah,
coffee
yeah.
and you're reading your Financial Times?
No. We're talking about, and I'm going to use your term, craft. I'm going to talk about my career and how have I survived doing the things that we do. And I use the word discipline, character a lot, and accountability. When I say discipline, means you get your backside out of bed every morning when you're sick and you don't feel like it and you got problems and you go to work and guess what? Nobody knows it. Nobody knows when you come to work that you have all this crap going on behind the screen. You know, I used to tell people when I got into politics, especially when I became state treasurer, when I had to take over a department of state, okay? I had all these state workers who didn't really like me because I'm always the guy that wants to cut this or want to look at that, you know. Well, they didn't really know me. They didn't know John Schroder, the business guy. They didn't know John Schroder, the problem solver. Well, I went into that building like every day for almost 18 months. I mean, like for a while. Why? Because I knew I needed to have the discipline to teach them there was a different way of doing it, not telling them, showing them. So I went to work every day. I showed up at the right time before everybody else, and I went home after everybody else. Many, many nights I looked out the third floor. My floor at the state capitol was one floor before the governor. And I can't tell you how many times I looked out my window across the state parking lot behind the Capitol, and guess whose car was the only one in the parking lot? Not the governor's, not anybody else's, the state treasurer. And there might be two other ones there. Many, many times. But I did that, one, because I wanted to prove that there is a right way to do this. And people who've lost faith in government and people like me, and I don't really care. I don't listen to the naysayers. Another discipline. I don't listen to the noise, the gray noise. But that takes time. You don't build an ant pile overnight, and I didn't build my discipline overnight. But even at 64, and you can hear me getting fired up about it, that it's a discipline, and I wish I can infuse it in everybody. Because you can be so successful, and you don't have to be the A student in a room. You don't have to be the prettiest or the skinniest or the best athlete. But man, you can be so successful in life just if you can discipline yourself through all these things. Don't spend more than you make, okay? I wish I'd learned this much, much earlier in my life. Understand where your faith is and what your faith means to everything else in your life that happens, from your marriage to your friendships to your business to your associations. It's unbelievable. And I tell young people, and I may have told you this before, don't wait. Don't wait. The faster you connect your faith with everything else you do, the better your life is going to be. I'm not saying you're not going to have a good life. I said the better your life will be, okay? But I go back to discipline. It's discipline yourself to get up every day, go to work. If you're supposed to be there at 10 and you get there at 10, you're late. That's a discipline.
He looked at me when he said that.
Huh?
He said he looked at me when he said that.
No. I mean, you're doing it. You're doing an interview here.
I know. I'm messing with
So-
you. He always gets on me because I'm never on time.
But y'all, these are very basic things. And Ellie and I've done well in our life.
Yeah.
You know, financially.
Can I ask you a question
Yeah.
about that? So the idea of getting up and going to work even though you don't want to, even though you have all the things going on in the background.
Yeah.
I think, people, even somebody who constantly shows up on time and people just assume that, that's just who you are and what you're going to do. Like, how do you get through that? Like, if you're having a hard time, and obviously, for me, it's just, you just show up, like, no matter what's going on. But how do you work through parts of your career where you just, like, you wake up in the morning and you acknowledge to yourself, I don't want to get out of bed today, and I don't want to go to work. Because I mean, look, I mean, I've been in business for 8 years now, and I have moments where I wake up in the morning and I'm laying in my bed and I'm like, I don't want to get up today because I just genuinely don't know if I want to do this today.
You know, I don't have some magical formula to that, but I will tell you, I came up as an athlete, and I was in a very athletic family. So all of us, all our lives revolved around athletics at a young age. If you wanted to be good, you needed to go play, practice, whatever. So it was a trait that I learned being an athlete. But I guess because I saw the success, I understood that if you put in the work and you get your teeth kicked in, and you get your knees bloodied, and you just keep, thank you, sir, give me another.
Yeah.
You know, like the Bible says, turn the other cheek. And, you know, for whatever reason, Jared, I accepted that. I accepted that pain to just getting up every day. Knock my ass down, I was getting up the next day because I knew that was my only path. I wasn't the smartest guy in the room. I wasn't a great student. If it wasn't for the letter C, I'd never graduate from college, you know? So I had to do something else. I couldn't study my way. My daughter, Brittany, I told her when she was 13, you may be smarter than Dad at 13, but you'll never be wiser, okay? So I knew I wasn't a great student, but I knew I was honest. And if somebody just gave me a shot, I would outwork anybody. I'm 64. I invite either one of y'all, come hang out with me today, any day. Pick one. Good luck. I mean, it's
So
just.
then you come hang out with me for a day too.
I'd love that. I love it. There's not too many things at this stage in my life other than if we're going to go sit down and talk technology, and that's not me.
Yeah.
You know, because that's just, I don't know anything about technology. I know how to turn on a computer, although I will tell you, I'm very proud. You know, it's amazing. This is sort of my one of my big rules. Although I like to talk and preach now at this age, in my past, I let my actions speak louder than my words through my faith, through my businesses, through my relationship with my wife, my family. There's no better compliment than people walk up to you and say, man, I love watching y'all's family. I love watching you and your wife because my daddy taught me something. Don't quarrel with your wife in public.
Amen.
You know, there's certain things that should stay in your house.
Amen.
And but that holds true in business.
Absolutely.
You know, there's certain things that you and your partner should keep in the room. And then there's other things, you know, that aren't. So I learned those kind of things. And so, I mean, I can go on and on and on and on and on. You know, I started probably about 3 months ago writing. Nice. And your partner heard me speak recently, which is, well, I know that was one of the reasons he wanted me to come do this. But I have a cheat sheet because you got so many things to say. I just have bullets now, and I have it big enough on the computer I can stand and look at it, and so you can be a little bit more impactful in an hour. You know, because I do have the 10 or 15 things, but I'm so ADD I couldn't even tell you what they are. I could talk about them, but you know, 10 or 15 things to be successful in life that almost guaranteed. So it's not about just getting up at time. It's about being on time and being responsible. And when somebody asks you to do something or tells you to do it, and respecting authority and doing it, you know, and doing more than what the people ask you to do, not just what they ask you to do more, deliver more. You know, we have this word in Louisiana called land yap. I love land yap. You know what? Because as a business person and a business owner, we were all about the land yap.
Yeah.
You know, I never worried about what I made. I didn't care about making more money than the next guy because to this day, I undercut myself in what I make. And that's okay, you know, because my dad taught me something before he died. He died of cancer. We knew he was terminal. And he told me a few things that I'll never forget. And he said, son, you need to know when enough is enough. I'm at that stage in my life. that we've done okay. We don't need. I could go make more money, but let me tell you, when I left, I basically left half my business aside when I ran for the state house when I was 47 years old, and then Ellie stepped in. She retired, and then we went through one of the worst business cycles in my career in 2008. That to this day still has a major effect on us, But, at the end of the day, Jared, I could lose every penny, and that's something to really think hard about, in my opinion. I could lose every penny today, and guess what happens tomorrow? We just go right back at it, because you just do what you do.
Yeah, and what else are you going to do?
Yeah.
It's
never about money. I mean, look, what's great about being now? You look a little retired. You're a little casual for a young guy. This is me now. I mean, I don't have to wear a suit every day. Put a tie on and go to the state capitol. I did that for 18 years, and people ask, "Man, what's your political future?" Is I said, I don't know. I don't think it's going to involve a coat and tie. I just don't see myself going to Washington and leaving my family at this stage in my life.
Yeah.
I got grandkids. I get asked a lot if you're going to run for U.S. Senator. It's intriguing because I believe I made an impact. I believe I brought something to the table that is integrity, credibility, and doing the right thing. This is important when nobody is watching. And nobody knows what you're doing. And I can sit here and tell you and look you straight in the eye. Not only have I have never misspent a penny or done one single thing in my 18-year political career that you may not agree with the decision, and that's hard in itself because I still have people around this parish who don't like me just because I did not agree with their position on how something should be funded, because everything I did was around the money.
Yeah.
You want to make people mad?
Mess with their money.
Mess with their money.
Yeah.
But government needs their money messed with at every level. And I can say that. A military guy, a law enforcement guy, my wife's a teacher. There's not a government agency alive on this earth that doesn't need some help when it comes to money.
Yeah, sure. So I want to talk about you and Miss Ellie in a second, but one thing I want to say before we move into that is you something you said resonated with me about just if you lost everything, you would just get up tomorrow and just do the same thing. I think there's something to everybody having something they went through in their life. Not everybody, but the people who really know what that feeling you're talking about. Yeah. They've gone through something in their life that made them realize that's what it's going to take in order for you to be able to survive no matter what. Yeah. And like everybody has different things, right? I've talked to military guys who had that basic training or the tests that they had to do to do their job in the military. I, like you, was a baseball player my whole life, and my high school baseball coach was unbelievably disciplined in the way that he ran and managed our practices.
What was his name?
His name was Jeff Adams in Alexandria. We went to the semifinals, quarterfinals, semifinals, and won a state championship my senior year. And there was never a moment in time at practice where somebody wasn't doing something productive. Right. And that just kind of, I think all of those little wins kind of carry forward, and they start accumulating to the point where if somebody looked at you and said, you now have nothing, what's the thing how are you going to fix that problem? You just get up the next morning and just go to work and do the things you've always done in order to be successful, because you know in your heart that if you do the things that you know you need to do, you're going to be able to win.
You know what the biggest mistake people make in life when it comes to their finances? And I could talk about finances all day long because I'm self-taught. My father taught me. But the biggest mistake people make, Jared, is they spend more than they make. And they haven't disciplined themselves, because Ellie and I lived in Section 8 housing, okay? And I was putting money in the bank. I mean, all through my life, I've saved money. It's called delayed gratification. You have to pay today to have tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And people just don't do that. Mm-hmm. Everything is instant. There's no such thing as delayed gratification anymore. Mm-hmm. I teach that to people. You have to practice delayed gratification. If you don't, I don't say suffer. If you don't, I don't have the word. You have to give up today so you have it tomorrow.
So let me ask you about that, though. I mean, from a business standpoint, there's always the idea of putting back into your business, putting into your business.
Yep.
At what point are you over sacrificing and not being disciplined or hitting the right growth? Because we feel that pressure.
Absolutely. Look, every business is different, though. Ellie and I were small business people. We were small blue collar business people. We didn't have a corporate buildings, and we were small mom and pop businesses. I could write a book on how to be successful mom and pops. Mm-hmm. I can't tell you what it takes to build a $1 billion company, but I can tell you what it takes to make $50,000, $60,000, $80,000 a year, because that's what most small businesses are. Mm-hmm. You're just buying a job, So Ellie and I survived because Ellie was a school teacher. We learned how to live off of a teacher's salary, and this is the truth. Probably for 20 years, we lived off of a teacher's salary. Mm-hmm. Think about that. Now, you know me pretty well. Now, we have a nice house in here, but that's house number 19th move in 40 years of marriage. We haven't had a house note since we were around 40 years old. Mm-hmm. And it's still the best tax break there is in America. You can build your own house, live in it for 2 years, sell it, and make up to $500,000 tax-free.
Tax-free, yeah, no capital gain.
We were very disciplined about that, and we're fixing to do our 20th move late this year. I don't know if I told you that. Well, yeah, y'all sold a lot. But I don't know. I don't want to be rambling, but the biggest problem people have that I see today that's not taught, and one of the things I worked on as state treasurer with a state rep out of Hammond, Nikki Mascarella, was make it mandatory for every high school student now has to take a finance class to get TOPS. Mm-hmm. We're the most illiterate financial state in America. Mm-hmm. Kids don't know how to save money at all. Their parents don't know how to save money, so they don't. And if you want financial freedom, I know a lot of poor, smart people, but I don't know too many poor people that have great work ethics.
Yeah.
And I don't mean they live in, pick the fancy subdivision. I mean, they happy, they provide, they have whatever they live, whatever they drive. They're happy with it. They're comfortable in their skin. They go to work every day, and they provide, but they live within their means.
Yeah.
And it wasn't till recently that I might have started living outside my means, But I'm 63 years old, just turned 64.
Yeah.
My wife told me the other day I need to go get a job. So I mean, it's the biggest problem we face in business today. And let's face it, there's way more people that are going to fail in business than succeed in business. That's a fact. So if you want to be successful, it's not about driving the fancy cars or wearing fancy clothes. I buy cheap clothes and cheap cars, but we do live in nice houses because those are investments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So before we wrap up, I want to talk about you and Miss Ellie, because you've been working with Miss Ellie as your partner for how long? She retired. She retired when?
Oh, she's old, man. Ellie retired. This is when you could still retire early as a school teacher. We were doing well financially. So Ellie, we had made a decision that Ellie would work till she got to the age so we would have our benefits guaranteed. So we wouldn't have to worry about benefits. And man, am I glad she did that.
Yeah, sure.
Because that's probably one of the biggest things you face as a business owner today is health benefits.
So tell me what your favorite part of working with your wife is. That's what I want to know.
I guess because I can trust her. I have so many friends that have lost money, not because their business wasn't well, because they had either partners who were taking money or their administrators were taking money. It's very prevalent in business. Mm-hmm. In fact, I told somebody the other day, if I was to start all over today, I'd have a company where when in law school, they don't teach you how to run a business.
Of course not.
In medical school, they don't teach you how to run a business. Same thing with engineers and mostly doctors, But I'd start a business today where I would come in and run the backside of your business. And I know companies that do that. I had a dinner with one the other night because I am doing some consulting work. But I guess the best thing about having your wife involved in your business, 100%, 110% blind faith, trust her. You know, now Ellie had a buy-in to, because I'm hard-headed like this. You know, I think the formula to success, you have to do certain things, and it's not the big things. And I even running the Department of Treasury or anything I've ever done, it was always the little things. I don't know, just silly things that you can watch people. If they do the little things, and if they can discipline themselves to do the little things, then you ain't got to worry about the big things.
Yeah.
But if they not doing this, or you ask to do that, and they don't do this, they're never going to get the big challenge. They're never going to get the big ask. You know, so having your wife in your business saved a lot of those troubles. Now, if she was sitting here talking to you, she would tell you he's all business. You know, and you could come sit at my house this afternoon. I'm going to be the same guy that's sitting in this chair right now at dinner, at breakfast, or Sunday after church. So I've had to work on that because I'm intense, and I've had to work on that as I've gotten older. And the stresses, and I will tell you, my blood pressure the other day was 108/68.
Nice.
I mean,
That's great.
Because I will stress myself out helping people. But that's what I do because somebody needs to do it. Somebody needs help. We started a ministry feeding the homeless people. Well, I'm organizing, constantly doing that. And there's only once a month. I'm a lieutenant in Endymion. I have 242 guys in our group. I oversee probably the largest group in all of Mardi Gras inside the club of Endymion. Okay. This past Sunday, I handed out over $102,000 worth of tickets to the extravaganza. You know who my accountant is?
Miss Ellie.
Miss Ellie. Me and Venmo have become very good friends. But my point is, there's probably 10 different SKUs, from bus tickets to extravaganza tickets to hotels to the Friday night party before Endymion, the day lunch, and she does it all.
Yeah.
I mean, I collect it, I balance, but she puts it all in the books and makes sure everything works. So having your wife,
having a teacher wife too, because my wife's a teacher too, and she's able to do all that stuff, the Excel spreadsheet and the tracking and all that. So that's a plus.
Well, I told my wife recently, I know she's going to get to watch this, and you know, I think we have a great relationship. I don't know how you survive 40 years and not have a great relationship. Is it peaches and cream all the time? No, because I'm intense and I'm 24/7. Like, and I've had to teach myself to go to bed before midnight, and I've had to teach myself to sleep more than 4 hours. You know, and that's hard. You know, but when you're on a go every day, I love sitting here talking because it gets my juices flowing. You know, but I get bored. I'm really bored right now. You know, and I'm working probably 6 to 8 hours a day. Some days I don't work at all. You know, but we are doing a lot of things from the nonprofit space, which I enjoy. You know, I've been so blessed to meet some unbelievable people, and but I know who my friends are. My friends have always been my friends. Will always be my friends. I always bring friends into my circle. I'm always willing to help people. I help others before I'm helping myself, and I think that's how God blessed Ellie and I, because if people think I'm good, then my wife is.
She's a saint.
She's a saint. I mean, look, there's a few things I'm positive about in my life. My wife is in heaven. Yeah. I mean, God's just lending that little angel to earth right now because she's got a spot. You know, I'm going to have to work a little hard.
So that was the point of me asking the question. I'm glad we got there eventually because I agree. She's a pretty incredible person. I love spending time with her, and the way that she treats my kids whenever they're around, it's great. So, well, let's wrap up before the wrap up. So, I mean, I think that one of the biggest things that we talked about today was that in order for you to be successful in business, you have to have discipline. And I would imagine that if what you said, you learned that from your dad, you learned that from your sports career, and you learned that from the military. And I think that it carries forward in every aspect of your life. So we didn't have any bombs dropped about any next moves from Mr. John here. But
no, but I do want to say this. You know, people talk about stress. Man, this ain't stress, man. Stress is when you kiss your wife and kids goodnight at night and you go out and you're either doing things or you're supervising people who are doing things in the law enforcement space and you don't know if you're going home that night. Yeah. That's stress. You know, all this other stuff is a game. So you have to learn how to handle your problems because life is a problem. Your quality of life depends on how you handle your problems. But my law enforcement career and my military career is really important to me. I've said my last prayer before in a crack house in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. I remember it like it was last night. Yeah. Okay. I took great offense to the government's attack on law enforcement and our military a few years ago. So when I was state treasurer, I commissioned my own lapel pin. I don't know what way the cameras are shooting.
It was good.
I gave Dom one. I give this to veterans. I hand these to police officers when I see them, and now I ride in the parades with my new Jeep. But I just want to read this real quick because this is probably most important to me. Not the most, but very important to me. A little message: law enforcement and military lapel pin. Few callings demand the willingness to sacrifice and put oneself in harm's way for the safety of others. The sacrifice of service is often carried out with little fanfare, but our law enforcement officers and military continue to do it daily. Being a former United States Army soldier, CID Special Agent, and Sheriff's Narcotics Detective, I understand firsthand the sacrifice made by men and women who put the uniform on every day. As a binding emblem of our shared experience in the service to others and a symbol of gratitude, I have commissioned this lapel pin in recognition of your sacrifice and unwavering dedication to your communities and our country. Thank you for your service. And I had this as state treasurer. I still have probably 2,000 of them, but that part of my life was very, very important to me. And I think probably more so because of that experience, because I say I shouldn't be here because I am, but I had COVID in the hospital and there was a time I didn't think I was coming out. So there's 2 times in my life where I basically said my last prayer and not too many people I know can say that. Yeah. So that shapes you in ways that you can't even explain. Yeah. So that's real important to me. My as I said earlier, to wrap up, my professional background, I had a professional law enforcement background. I had a professional business background. I've been very, very fortunate to do the things that I wanted to do in my life, and not many people can say that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll say this, and we say this in every interview with the military, appreciate your services, no doubt, and that's obviously special to you. And I appreciate what you've done and mentor you've been to me, and I'm glad you got to meet Dom today. So I appreciate you coming on, Mr. John.
Yep.
Yep.
All righty.
Thanks.